The streets of Lagos were always loud, alive, and unforgiving. Ifunanya felt it all in her bones. The burn of the sun on her back, the ache in her legs, the sharp pang of hunger twisting in her stomach. She hadn't eaten properly in 3 days. The sachet water she sipped that morning had long stopped pretending to be filling. Yet still she moved. Hope, stubborn and trembling, kept her searching. Her worn-out sneakers slapped against the pavement as she passed street vendors, bus conductors yelling destinations, and exhausted commuters brushing past her. She glanced into shop windows and taped up posters, looking for the same thing everywhere. Help wanted. She would clean floors, wash clothes, carry blocks. Anything honest. But nobody wanted to hire a girl with no fixed address, no qualifications, and no family. Just one chance. That was all she needed. Stopping to retie her shoelace near a rusted lamppost, Ifunanya noticed something strange out of the corner of her eye. A leather wallet, dark, sleek, and clearly expensive, lay half-tucked beneath the curb like it was waiting to be found. Her heart jumped. She looked around. No one seemed to be searching. Carefully, she picked it up, feeling the supple weight in her hands. It was real. She opened it slowly. Cash. Thick bundles of Naira bills. So many that her hands trembled. And beneath the money, a stack of cards and a gold-trimmed ID badge. Tunde Akanbi, CEO, Akanbi Group Holdings. Ifunanya's breath caught in her throat. She'd heard that name before. Everyone had. Tunde Akanbi was one of Nigeria's most successful businessmen. Real estate, tech, finance. His face had graced magazines, news shows, and Lagos billboards. She held the wallet closer, staring at his contact card. His full name, home address, private phone number. For a moment, the city noise disappeared. With that kind of money, she could eat, find a cheap room, buy clothes, maybe even go back to school. The dream surged inside her, fast and furious. But alongside it came another voice, soft but familiar, her grandmother's voice. Do what's right, even when no one is watching. Honesty is worth more than money. Ifunanya's chest tightened. She blinked hard and closed the wallet. It wasn't hers. As painful as it was, she knew what she had to do. The address led her to Banana Island, Lagos' version of paradise. High fences, sleek black gates, houses so big they looked like they could swallow a whole street. She walked for what felt like hours, the wallet clutched to her chest. Finally, she stood before a tall mansion with cream walls and rows of security cameras. She pressed the intercom. Silence. She tried again, then clapped her hands. A tall man in a black shirt and security boots emerged from a side entrance. He took one look at her, from her dusty hair to her cracked shoes, and frowned deeply. What do you want? Please? I need to speak with Mr. Tunde Akanbi. It's very important. He scoffed. You think this is a charity home? We don't hand out alms here. Go beg somewhere else. Ifunanya's face burned with shame, but she didn't move. I'm not here for handouts. Just tell him Ifunanya is at the gate, and if he doesn't want to see me, I'll leave quietly. The man eyed her suspiciously, but something in her tone, steady, sure, made him pause. Wait here, he muttered. Inside the house, Tunde was reviewing quarterly reports when the guard knocked. Sir, there's a girl at the gate. Said her name is Ifunanya. She looks rough, but she insists on seeing you. Tunde didn't look up. Did she say what for? No, sir, but she was very firm. Not aggressive, just urgent. Tunde paused. Normally, he wouldn't bother, but something about the way the guard spoke made him curious. All right, I'll come. Ifunanya was still standing by the gate when it slid open. A tall man stepped out in a tailored suit, his face clean-shaven, his expression unreadable. Tunde Akanbi. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. I found this on Eko Street this morning, she said, extending the wallet. Tunde took it, opened it, and his eyes scanned quickly. The cash, the cards, the notes, everything was there. He looked up at her, stunned. You didn't take anything? She shook her head. It wasn't mine. Tunde studied her, hair pulled back with a faded scarf, face pale from heat and hunger. But her eyes, they didn't flinch. They were clear, unapologetic. He turned to the guard. Open the gate. Sir, she's coming in. Ifunanya hesitated. There's no need. I just came to return. And now you're going to sit down and have something warm to eat. That's the least I can offer. The house smelled like polished wood and lemon cleaner. Ifunanya sat gingerly on the edge of a leather sofa. A moment later, Tunde returned with a cup of tea and a small plate. She took the first sip, and it nearly brought tears to her eyes. Do you live nearby? He asked. She lowered her gaze. No, I live nowhere. Nowhere. I lost my job. Then I lost my grandmother. She was all I had. I've been on the street since. He said nothing for a moment. Then, from the hallway, came the soft sound of footsteps. A small boy, maybe 6, stood in the doorway clutching a toy car. His eyes were wary, distant. Kamsi, Tunde said gently, come say hello. The boy said nothing. Then he turned to Ifunanya. She smiled. Hi, what's your car's name? The boy stepped closer. Turbo. Cool name. Is it fast? He nodded, then sat on the floor, beside her. As they played, laughter, real, rich laughter, burst from the boy's mouth. Tunde, standing quietly in the hallway, felt his heart stumble. It had been 3 years since he last heard his son laugh. 3 years since Eniola passed. 3 years of silence. And now, this girl, this stranger, this nobody, had made his son smile. Tunde whispered to himself, Who are you, Ifunanya? The late afternoon light spilled gently across the marble floor as Tunde stood frozen in the hallway. It wasn't the tea or the honesty that unsettled him. It was the sound of his son's laughter. It had been so long since he heard it. He'd almost forgotten what it sounded like. Samtachukwu, his son, had withdrawn from the world after his mother, Eniola, died in a tragic car accident 3 years earlier. A silence had taken root in him. One that no expensive therapist, prestigious boarding school, or professional nanny could fix. Tunde had tried everything, but nothing reached the boy. Until now. Until her. Ifunanya sat barefoot on the rug beside the child, her figure slight and her smile effortless. She held one end of a throw pillow ramp, while Santo released his toy car from the top. It zoomed down, crashed gently into the leg of a table, and the boy erupted into another bout of delighted giggles. Tunde cleared his throat. Ifunanya turned quickly. Standing up, Sorry, he came to me. I didn't want to. Tunde raised his hand gently. Don't apologize. That was the most I've seen him smile in years. Samachukwu looked up. Dad, the car jumped. She made a ramp. Tunde bent down to his son. Did it really? The boy nodded enthusiastically. She's like magic. Tunde's gaze lingered on Ifunanya. Something in her quiet presence, her lack of desperation, her simple kindness. It stirred something long dormant in him. Ifunanya, he said, how would you feel about staying here? I don't mean just today. Her brow furrowed. You mean work here? He nodded. As a caregiver. For Samto, you'd have a room, meals, a steady salary. You wouldn't owe us anything. But we would owe you more than we can say. She blinked, overwhelmed. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's trust. Ifunanya looked at Samto, now played with the toy again on the floor. She had nowhere else to go. But this offer, this wasn't just shelter. It was something more. A crack of light. She took a breath. I accept. Her new room was at the end of the east wing. It was small but spotless, with soft sheets and an actual closet. When she lay down that night, she stared at the ceiling too stunned to sleep. She still couldn't believe the day that began with hunger and hopelessness had ended here, in a mansion. When morning came, the silence was broken not by shouting Danfo drivers, but by the faint melody of birds outside her window. Downstairs, Mama Aisha, the seasoned housekeeper, watched Ifunanya approach the kitchen table with a curious glance. Did you sleep well? She asked, her tone kind but measured. Very well. Thank you, Ma. Mama Aisha nodded. You can drop the Ma. We don't do too much formality here. Just respect. She placed 2 plates on the table, one with fruit, one with warm yam and egg sauce. Mr. Akanbi likes his coffee strong. Little Master Samto waits around 8. He's quiet but observant. Don't force things. Let him come to you. Ifunanya nodded gratefully. Understood. A few minutes later, Samto walked in still in his pajamas, holding his toy car and rubbing sleep from his eyes. He didn't speak, but when he saw her, he walked straight to her chair and sat beside her like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Good morning," she whispered. He handed her a banana wordlessly. Ifunanya smiled. "Thank you, Captain Turbo." From the stairwell, Tun paused, watching the exchange. Something in his chest tugged. The way his son moved so freely around her. It wasn't just comfort, it was connection. Later that afternoon, Ifunanya sat with Samto under the shaded porch as he arranged building blocks. She didn't talk much, just listened. "What's your favorite animal?" he asked suddenly. "A parrot," she said, surprised. "They're colorful, and they don't talk unless they feel like it." He chuckled. "Mine is a lion, because they protect." The words lingered longer than they should have. By evening, Tun returned from work earlier than usual. He found them sprawled on the living room floor building a fortress of pillows. "May I enter the fortress?" he asked with a mock bow. Samdo jumped up. "Only if you have the password." Tun smirked. "And what's the password?" The boy whispered something in Ifunanya's ear. She giggled. "The password is a hug." Tun knelt down, arms open. Samto ran into them without hesitation. Ifunanya turned away, blinking back tears. She'd never had a fortress of her own, but maybe she'd found one. That night, after Samdo had gone to bed, Tun knocked softly on Ifunanya's door. "I know it's late. Just wanted to check. How was your first day?" "Surreal," she admitted, "but good." He lingered in the doorway. "I haven't seen him this at ease in a long time. I owe that to you. You don't owe me anything. Samto just needed someone who wasn't trying to fix him. Just sit with him." He nodded slowly. "That's exactly what you do. You don't rush. You just stay." For a few seconds, neither of them said anything. Then, softly, "Good night, Ifunanya." "Good night, sir." When the door closed, Ifunanya leaned against it. She felt something strange rising in her chest. Not fear, not uncertainty. Something warmer, something terrifying. Hope. The days that followed moved like quiet waves lapping against an unfamiliar shore, gentle, steady, and unexpected. Ifunanya quickly fell into rhythm. Mornings were filled with Samtachukwa's soft-spoken curiosity. Afternoons were for games on the back porch, paper crafts under Mama Aisha's watchful eye, and short walks around the garden, where Samto would name each flower like they were his old friends. Ifunanya never tried to become his mother. She simply listened, stayed close, and let him come to her. And he did. One evening, as they built a magic rocket from cardboard and empty juice boxes, Samto looked up and said, "You don't talk too much." "I like that." She smiled gently. "Some people say I don't talk enough." "They're wrong." He pushed the car along their rocket's edge. "You listen. That's better." Tun had just stepped out of his office and paused when he heard that. His son, once unreachable, was now offering insights. And Ifunanya, the woman who walked in from the streets, was becoming the reason. A few days later, Tun found Ifunanya in the study, sorting through children's books. "You read with him every night?" he asked, stepping into the room. "Yes, he insists. He's made me read one book 7 times. Tun chuckled. Samto does have loyalty to a fault. Then, almost without thinking, he added, "Have you ever thought about studying? Officially, I mean." She blinked. "Studying? Yes. You're clearly gifted with children. There's a training program, educational psychology. I could sponsor it if you're interested." She was silent for a moment. "It's not charity," he added quickly. "It's an investment. You're already doing the work. I just want to support you doing it professionally." Ifunanya looked away, overwhelmed. No one had ever offered her anything with no strings attached. "I'll think about it," she said quietly. That weekend, Tun hosted a small business dinner in his home. His assistant had insisted. Some investors wanted a personal gathering. As the house was cleaned and prepared, Tun did something no one expected. He walked into the kitchen, where Ifunanya was helping Mama Aisha slice oranges, and said, "Would you be my guest tonight?" She paused mid-slice. "Me?" "Yes. You've earned a seat at my table, Ifunanya. I'd be honored if you joined us." Her instinct was to refuse. She didn't own a dress. She wasn't used to crowds. And she was certain she didn't belong in the same room as Lagos elite. But something in his voice, something soft and sure, made her nod. That evening, Mama Aisha surprised her with a borrowed dress. A simple cream gown gently fitted. She helped pin up Ifunanya's hair, and when she was done, she stepped back with a proud smile. "They won't see where you came from," she said. "They'll see who you are." Ifunanya descended the stairs slowly. At the base, Tun stood waiting, adjusting his cufflinks. When he looked up, he froze. "Wow," he murmured. "You look stunning." She flushed. "It's borrowed." "Doesn't matter. You wear like royalty." The dinner was held in the formal dining room. Ifunanya kept her eyes down at first, speaking only when spoken to. The guests, well-dressed, well-spoken, glanced at her curiously. Whispers circled the room, subtle but cutting. "Is she the new nanny? Tun's date?" But Tun didn't flinch. He introduced her simply. "This is Ifunanya. She's family." That word echoed in her mind like a bell. Family, not employee, not guest. Family. By the second course, she found her footing. She answered politely, smiled when appropriate, and caught Tun's reassuring gaze more than once. After dessert, he leaned in. "Need air?" She nodded. They stepped out into the quiet garden lit by soft hanging lights. The evening breeze carried the scent of hibiscus. "I hope I didn't embarrass you," she said softly. Tun turned to her. "Embarrass me? You were the most grounded person in that room." She smiled, unsure what to say. He took a step closer. "Ifunanya, I meant what I said earlier. You're not just helping Samto. You're helping me." She looked up, startled. "I've been numb since Eniola died. I buried myself in work. But since you walked into my home, with that wallet, with nothing to gain, you've brought life back into our lives." Her heart pounded. "I don't know what this is between us," he continued, "but I know what it feels like, and it feels like something I've been waiting for." She couldn't breathe. "Tund, you don't have to say anything now. I just needed to be honest. The same way you were that day at my gate." For a moment, they stood in silence under the stars. Then he added quietly, "You make the house feel like home again." Later that night, Ifunanya lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room around her had not changed, but she had. She remembered the voices of doubt from her past. "You don't belong. You'll never make it. You're nothing without a name." But tonight, for the first time, someone powerful had seen her. Not her weakness, not her lack, but her. The next few days bloomed like early morning hibiscus, quietly but unmistakably. Tun became more present than he'd been in years. He came home earlier. He stopped answering emails at dinner. And every evening, as the sun dipped low, he found his way to the back porch where Ifunanya and Samtachukwu built cardboard cities and laughed like time didn't exist. Ifunanya was cautious. She still helped with chores, still slept with one eye on the clock and the other on her purpose. But something had shifted. The walls she built to survive on the street, hard, unscalable things, began to show cracks. Even Mama Aisha noticed. One morning, while slicing pawpaw in the kitchen, she said casually, "You've brought air into this house." Ifunanya paused. "What do you mean?" "Since you came, the boy laughs. Tun breathes. And I don't feel like I'm guarding a graveyard." Ifunanya didn't reply, but her heart swelled with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. That afternoon, Samto pulled her by the hand. "Let's go to the secret garden." "Secret garden?" "It's behind the greenhouse. Dad never goes there." They passed through tall hedges and arrived at a small patch of land, overgrown but beautiful. A wooden bench sat beneath an old tree with peeling bark and winding roots. Petals carpeted the earth like forgotten blessings. Samto dropped his toy and climbed the tree. I pretend this is where Mum lives. The sky is close here. She can hear me. Ifunanya sat silently on the bench. Sometimes I think she sent you, he added, his voice quieter now. You're not scared quiet. Maybe because I lived in it for so long, she replied softly. He climbed down and hugged her suddenly, fiercely. She held him close. That evening, as dusk painted the sky, Tun stood at the kitchen counter with a small blue box in his hand. He had carried it around for 3 days. He had picked it out himself. It wasn't flashy, just a simple silver ring with a sapphire stone. It wasn't about the price. It was about the moment. When Ifunanya entered the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel, he turned. Do you have a moment? She nodded. He motioned toward the back door. Let's take a walk. They moved through the quiet house, through the garden path, past the greenhouse, until they reached a hidden corner where petals covered the ground. Ifunanya smiled. Samto brought me here today. He used to come here with Iniola, Tun said, sitting on the bench. They'd read under this tree. She sat beside him, quietly. I thought I'd never return here, he continued. Too many memories, too much pain. He opened his hand and revealed the box. Tund, she whispered. He opened it slowly. The sapphire caught the golden light. This isn't about wealth or fixing the past. It's about building something new. You've done more for me and my son than any doctor, teacher, or counselor ever could. You brought us back to life. She blinked rapidly. I want to share that life with you. Not because I pity you, but because I love you. Silence. A breeze moved through the trees. Ifunanya stared at the ring, then at him. I don't know if I can fit in your world, she said, barely above a whisper. I came from dust, Tund. Nothing. What if I mess it all up? You won't, he said, voice steady, because this isn't about status. It's about truth, and you've been nothing but honest since the day we met. She looked down at the ring again, her fingers trembling. I don't have fancy words, she whispered, but I know this, being here, with you and Samdo, it's the first time I've ever felt home. Tun slipped the ring onto her finger. Then stay, he said. Make this home yours too. The next morning, Ifunanya wore the ring like it was a part of her hand, small, unflashy, but powerful. Samto noticed immediately. You said yes, he shouted. She nodded. Does this mean you'll be my new mum? She paused. Only if you want me to be. The boy didn't answer. He hugged her instead. But peace has a way of inviting disruption. That afternoon, a car pulled up outside the mansion. A woman stepped out, tall, sharp-featured, dressed in expensive ankara, her heels clicking like warning bells. I'm here to see Tunde Akanbi, she said to the guard. Tell him Ngozi, Iniola's sister, is here, and it's urgent. The sky was unusually gray that afternoon, the kind that pressed down with invisible weight. Inside the mansion, laughter rang from the living room as Samachukwu built a castle with Ifunanya. Tun stood nearby, sipping tea, his expression lighter than it had been in years. That was when the gate buzzer rang. Mama Aisha answered and returned moments later with a tight face. She leaned into Tun's ear and whispered, There's a woman at the gate. Says her name is Ngozi. She claims to be Iniola's sister. Tun stiffened. She's here, with papers. She says it's urgent. Ngozi stood tall in the foyer, draped in a teal ankara wrapper and head tie that made her look like she belonged on the cover of a high society magazine. Her smile was cold, eyes sharper than a knife. Tund, she said, extending her hand. He shook it stiffly. Ngozi, I wasn't expecting. That I'd come back? She gave a short laugh. You never were good with surprises. Ifunanya entered, instinctively drawn by the tension. Tun turned to her, expression unreadable. This is Ifunanya, he said. My fiancée. Ngozi raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She opened her bag and pulled out a file. I came here for Samachukwu, not to exchange pleasantries. This, she said, dropping the file on the coffee table, is a legal petition For custody. Tun blinked. Custody? Of my son. Eniola's son, she corrected. Silence dropped like a boulder in the room. What are you saying? He asked, voice low. That you're not the boy's biological father. And I have proof. She removed another document from the file. A printed DNA test. This was done a year before Eniola died. She suspected something and got the test. The results are clear. Tun staggered back a step. Ifunanya stared at the document, her throat dry. Samdo not Tun's? You're lying? Tun said, gripping the edge of a chair. I'm filing this in court, Ngozi continued. I'll have legal guardianship in less than 2 weeks. Unless, she looked around, eyes settling on the tasteful furniture, the crystal vase. Unless you're willing to make it worth my while not to. Tun's eyes blazed. You're trying to blackmail me? Ngozi smiled. You're a smart man, Tun. You'll make the smart choice. That night, the house felt like a graveyard again. Tun sat alone in his office, staring at the DNA printout. He didn't want to believe it, but the fear gripped him. Could Eniola have kept something so huge from him? Ifunanya entered quietly, carrying a cup of tea. She placed it beside him without a word. You believe her? He asked, his voice hollow. I believe what you believe, she said gently. That Santo is your son, blood or not. He looked up at her, pain in his eyes. But what if I'm not? What if I lose him? You won't. You don't know that. I do, she said, because that woman didn't walk in with love. She walked in with leverage. People who love don't weaponize children. Tun looked down at the file. I need to know the truth, not for courts, for myself. The next morning, Ifunanya called Mama Aisha aside. I need your help, she said. Did Eniola keep any private belongings here? Letters, boxes, anything hidden? Mama Aisha frowned. She had a trunk in the attic. Tun told me to seal it after the funeral. I never touched it again. Can we look? They spent hours sifting through the trunk. Old journals, cards, perfume bottles, and finally, a small envelope marked in cursive. To be open if I cannot explain. Inside was another DNA report. Older, dated 1 year before the one Ngozi presented. It was a match. Tunde Akanbi, 99.9% probability. Biological father. Ifunanya's hands shook. She lied. She whispered. Ngozi forged it. When Tun read the letter tucked to the DNA report, his knees buckled. If anything happens to me, and Ngozi tries to take Santo, know that he is yours. Always was. She hates me, and she'll try to hurt what I love most. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier. Forgive me. Tun cried, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Ifunanya knelt beside him and held him silently. In court, Tun's lawyer presented the original DNA test, the letter, and the motive. The judge dismissed Ngozi's petition, warning her of possible legal consequences for fraud. As she stormed out, her heels clicking furiously, Ifunanya watched her go, not with anger, but with pity. Pain made people cruel. But love made people whole. That evening, Santo curled up beside Ifunanya on the porch. Dad said someone tried to take me, he murmured. But they didn't, she replied, because you belong here. So do you, he said softly. And for the first time he whispered, Mummy Ifunanya. She bit her lip to stop the tears. The week after the court hearing passed like a soft breeze after a thunderstorm, slow, cleansing, and full of reflection. Tun no longer walked around like a man, carrying invisible bricks on his back. He moved more freely, smiled more easily, and lingered longer in moments that used to pass him by. The DNA test hadn't just given him back his son. It had given him back his faith. Ifunanya, too, was changing. She still woke before sunrise and helped Mama Aisha in the kitchen. She still tied her scarf the same way and spoke with humility. But something inside her had grown quiet and rooted. She had faced a storm and stood firm. She had found her place, not because someone gave it to her, but because she earned it. One morning, after breakfast, Tunde asked to see her in his home office. The room was different now, less stiff, more lived in. Framed pictures of Samto lined the shelves. A drawing the boy made of their family rocket ship sat in a gold frame on the desk. Tun closed his laptop as she walked in. "You look well," he said. "I feel steady," she replied, settling into the chair across from him. He reached into a drawer and brought out a folder. "Your course materials," he said, sliding it toward her, "and your student ID. Congratulations, Ifunanya Akanbi. You're officially enrolled in the Educational Psychology Diploma Program." She stared at the folder for a long moment. Then she whispered, "No one's ever called me that. Not formally. Well, now it's real." His smile was gentle. "The past doesn't get to define you anymore." The next few weeks became a new kind of beautiful. Mornings were for study and quiet work. Afternoons belonged to Samto. In the evenings, she and Tun often shared cups of tea on the porch. They talked about everything. His mother's spicy jollof, her grandmother's laughter, their dreams, their scars. And sometimes they sat in silence, the kind that needed no filling. One evening, after a tutoring session, she returned to her room and found something on the bed. A drawing. Samto's signature colored pencil style. This one was different. A small family stood beneath a tree, 3 people holding hands. Above it, in crooked but careful letters, it read, "My home." Ifunanya sank onto the bed, holding the paper like a fragile treasure. The next day, she handed Tun an envelope with money still inside, the remainder of what he'd given her for school supplies. "I only used what I needed," she said. He tried to push it back. "You didn't have to." "I did," she said firmly, "because this isn't charity. It's partnership. And I want to stand beside you, not behind." Tun looked at her with something deeper than admiration. It was respect. Later that evening, while Ifunanya read Samdo his favorite bedtime story, Tun stood at the doorway and watched. The boy leaned against her shoulder, listening intently. His small fingers curled around her free hand. His chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. Peace. Tun swallowed the lump in his throat. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was earned. That night, as Ifunanya stepped into the kitchen for water, Tun was already there, pouring himself a glass. He looked up as she entered, his eyes soft in the dim light. "You know," he said, "before you came, I used to think peace was a luxury I could never afford again." She leaned on the counter beside him. "I thought love was something other people found," she said, "that it was reserved for people with history, with families, with homes." He placed the glass down, turning fully to her. "But you gave all of that to me," he said quietly, "and I want to give it back. All of it." Her breath caught. "I know this began unexpectedly," he continued, "but what I feel isn't sudden. It's steady. It's true. And I don't want to walk into the future without you." Ifunanya looked at him, eyes glistening. "You're not," she whispered. "I'm already beside you." The next morning, the house felt lighter than ever. Samto ran through the hall with a sock puppet. Mama Aisha hummed a gospel tune. Even the security guard at the gate seemed to smile more easily as Ifunanya sat outside reviewing her reading material. Samto burst through the door, holding a small flower he had plucked from the garden. "For you," he beamed. She smiled, taking it gently. "Why?" "Because you're my mummy now," he said with a grin. She kissed his forehead. "Then this flower is going in the biggest cup we have." That night, as they gathered in the living room watching an old comedy film, Tun gently reached for her hand. She looked at him and smiled. This wasn't a fantasy. This was grace. Grace that found her where she thought she was invisible, and chose her, over and over again. The sun peeked gently through the curtains the morning of the wedding, its light golden, soft, as if the sky itself had been told to be kind. The backyard of the Akanbi estate was transformed into something simple and sacred. White chairs lined the lawn. Strings of small lights danced between flowering trees. Mama Aisha oversaw everything with sharp precision and barely hidden tears. Ifunanya stood in her room, her fingers gently brushing the lace of her dress. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't designer. But it was hers. It fit like it had been waiting for her all her life. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Not because of the dress or the delicate hairstyle Mama Aisha insisted on, but because of the woman staring back. Whole, grounded, chosen. Samda Chukwu appeared at the door, wearing a tiny blue suit, eyes wide with pride. In his small hands was a box. The rings. "Are you ready?" he asked, beaming. She knelt and kissed his forehead. "I've been ready since the day you call me Mummy." Tun stood at the altar beneath the old tree, the very one where Ifunanya had first comforted Samto, where he had first held her hand, where petals always seemed to fall like blessings. He wore a deep navy suit and couldn't stop fidgeting with the sleeve cuffs. When the music began, every head turned. Ifunanya walked slowly, holding Samto's hand. It wasn't a grand entrance, but it was breathtaking. Tun's heart clenched. He had stood in boardrooms and dominated international meetings, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of the woman who saved his family, walking toward him with steady grace. When they reached him, Samto placed a ring box in his father's hand. "You're really marrying her?" he asked, whispering. "Yes," Tun whispered back. "We're making it official." "Good," Samto said, "because she's already our everything." The vows were not long or poetic, but they were real. Tun spoke first. "Ifunanya, when you walked into my life, I didn't know I had space left in my heart. I thought I had lost too much. But you didn't just return my wallet that day. You returned my soul. You brought laughter to my son, peace to my home, and hope to my future. I vow to protect that light in you. Always." Ifunanya's voice trembled, but didn't break. "Tun, I came to your door with nothing but integrity. You gave me a chance, but more than that, you gave me family. You made me feel seen. I vow to stand beside you, not behind you, not beneath you, but beside you, always." As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Samto shouted, "Finally," causing a ripple of laughter through the small crowd. They kissed beneath the tree, petals floating down like a quiet benediction. The reception was small and joyful. Samto insisted on a 3-layer cake, even if half of it was just for looking. Mama Aisha danced with the DJ. Even the security guards toasted with malt drinks. But the highlight came when Samdo stood on a chair, cleared his throat, and read from a paper he had folded too many times. "Dear Mom and Dad," he began, "thank you for making this home. I used to feel like I was floating alone in space, but now we're a family rocket, and I don't want to land." Ifunanya couldn't hold back the tears. Neither could Tun. Weeks passed, and their days found a new rhythm. Ifunanya attended weekend classes while Tun juggled meetings and lunch dates with Samto. They all had dinner together, always at the table, always with laughter. One Saturday morning, Ifunanya walked into the room holding a small white stick, her hands trembling. Tun looked up, saw her expression, and stood. She placed the test in his palm. 2 pink lines. His eyes widened. "Are you serious?" She nodded, unable to speak. Tun laughed, deep and loud, and pulled her into his arms, spinning her slightly before kissing her forehead. "We're having a baby." When they told Samto, he was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded solemnly. "I'll protect them," he said, "like you protect us." 9 months later, on a quiet Tuesday, Zainab Akanbi entered the world, tiny, strong, and already fierce in her cries. Samto held her with wide eyes and whispered, "Hi, I'm your brother. You picked a good family." On a warm evening, after the kids had fallen asleep, Tund and Ifunanya sat on their usual bench beneath the old tree. They didn't speak much, but after a while, he turned to her. "Do you remember the wallet?" She smiled. "How could I forget? I thought I was just losing money that day, but I was being led to everything that mattered." She reached over and held his hand. "I thought I was just doing the right thing, but that day, I found my future." They looked out at the stars, quiet, whole, content, and as the breeze rustled the tree leaves above them, they knew this was home. Not the house, not the wealth, not even the wedding, but the hearts they had built it with. Together,